Okay, so now going to start looking at doing some wiring. I think I said previously that there's no actual wiring loom came with this bike, so I'm going to have to do one from scratch, which is okay, don't mind doing that. In fact, I'd rather do one from scratch than I would try and work with an old one, and especially as I'm fitting non-standard components like the regulator rectifier, which I've got to find somewhere to put that, and also the control unit for the electronic ignition. Need to find a home for that, and I also want to try and incorporate a little fuse box somewhere, so I'll need to find a little home for that as well. I'm going to be using some thin wall wire. This is 16.5 amp, I think it is, so that should be perfectly adequate. And I've got some thick stuff there for the battery connections. And the other thing is, I did actually get a new battery tray. Don't know if you can remember, but that was the one that was on there, which is obviously not correct, with this big box thing on. Yeah, I did consider cutting all this off and just using this piece here, but really for what it cost for one of these, it was just as well to get that. I am just waiting for the special rubbers and special bolt that goes up, because none of that was on when I got it, just to fix that in place, which hopefully will be here this week so I can get that attached. But in the meantime, I can be working out where I'm going to put these other components, and I've also got a very basic wiring diagram. Tried to stick to the BSA colours where possible. Obviously some of these are different where there's a wiring loom that comes with the electronic ignition stuff, so I'll be using that, and also the one that's attached to this regulator rectifier. Yeah, so I'm basically kind of ready to start having a look at this, how far I'll get with it. We'll have to see. I've not as yet got a headlight or tail light, but that's kind of irrelevant really for this, because I could just leave some long tails, and a horn. I've got to get a horn as well, but I could just leave tails for that. Yeah, so really can sort of make a start. I think the first thing is deciding where this is going to go, because this is probably the biggest component. I have seen other people fit them under there on top of the oil tank. That's quite in shot there. Move it up a little bit. Yeah, sort of in here. So I might start with trying to make a plate to fit that to. I've got some various bits of aluminium plate. It's probably a little bit on the heavy side, that, but it will work. So I think that's the first plan. I think will be to try and figure out where everything is going to go, and get it fixed in place, and then from there I can start running the wires to the various components. Yeah, so that's going to be the first thing. Right, so I made a cardboard template, which I'm hoping will, once I cut it out, fit something like that. There is an existing hole there, which I think the previous owner must have drilled for some reason, so I can reuse that as a mounting point there, and possibly a bracket off this fixing bolt here, the oil tank fixing bolt, and then I'll just need something over that side to hold it, maybe a P-clip or something I could use. Don't really want to drill the frame. In fact, I think I've already filled in a hole there before this frame went off. I think it was there. Yeah, I probably should have left it. By the looks of it. But, yeah, so there's my pattern, the template, and I think I should have, fortunately, get that in the right place on there. I should be able to cut that from that piece of this is 4mm aluminium, which is a little bit over the top, but I've got it, so might as well use it. Right, got the thing basically rough cut. However, one slight problem is that won't quite go under. Gets caught up on this back frame tube because I've got this bracket here on the oil tank. It's just not allowing that to go down far enough. Yeah, so I'm gonna have a rethink somewhere, I think. Find some other way around it. I did think about going off the top. Not on there, but I don't think there'll be enough clearance for the seat. Or if there is, that'll be very tight. So back to the drawing board, looks of it. Right, plan B. I'm going to use this bracket, fix that under there. I might just have to trim that corner off and that corner, and then I can mount that somewhere on there, because this will all be behind the side panel, side cover, so you won't see any of that. So I think the first thing is to cut this down so it'll sit a bit further back, just to make sure I'm going to have enough clearance on the front for the side cover. So I think that's what we're going to get, where we're going to go with that. So I'll just trim these corners off in there, and then there are a couple of holes already in here that I can use, and obviously I'll need to leave a hole for the I'll drill a hole for when that goes through there. So that goes very far through. Yeah, that just about stick through there, so yeah, we'll need to just allow for that. But I think that might be the better choice. This can probably just be fixed up the top, maybe with a P-clip around the rail, and cable tied. I don't think that'll be too much of a problem. Alright, so that's the bracket, shaped a bit to fit in a bit better, and I've just put some riv nuts in there to attach it on with. It's a little bit easier than trying to get around the back with trying to put nuts and washers and stuff on. I will just use washers on the top, I think. These are just M6 riv nuts, and hopefully for me things line up correctly. And there. Right, I think that should work quite well. The only thing is now is to work out exactly how or where to position this. I might even be able to use some of these existing threaded holes, because they do actually line up perfectly. I think I might just attach it and see how much shows on this corner when the cover goes on, just see how it looks. If not, I might need to just drill some more a bit further up. Try there first, see how it looks. Right, so that's that fitted on. Do need to get some better washers, these aren't quite the right size. I see that, or re-drill those and tap them for M6. So I think these are probably what they should have in there. So cover will go somewhere there. Yeah, that is actually not going to work, I don't think. I'm sure that shouldn't be that far out, that cover. Yeah, so that is going to have to go up a little bit. That should be somewhere around there. Yeah, that's going to have to go up, either up or at an angle. Yeah, I'll have another little play about with that and see if I can get it in a better position. Right, that is about as high as I can get that. This does fit a little bit better. It's still not quite, it's still a little bit of a little bit tight there. And the other thing I'm not quite sure of is exactly if this is in exactly the right position. That rear one there, because I haven't got the proper clips in there as yet, so it's hard to tell. That one is in line with this one, which is fixed to the frame. However, the front one is a little bit out. This one is too far forward. So whether that bracket has not been made very well, it's almost as if that should be twisted back a little bit. Which, if it is, I think that will probably I say. It's a little bit hard to tell until I actually get the proper fixings in there, because I'm not sure how far this is meant to stick out. So I think that might be the next thing, is to order the clips that go on there, and see exactly how that is going to fit on, because there is still a little bit of tightness here. The only other thing to do is cut a little piece off these lower fins, because it's just rubbing on there on that lower corner. So that is one option. it can't go any further that way, and it can't go any further that way. So if it does go there, that's where it's going to have to go. I did look at fixing this on the back. Yeah, but there just isn't quite enough room. Not with the bracket fixed here anyway. I would have to come up with some other way of fixing the actual bracket to this cross member. Yeah, I think what I'll have to do is order these Oddie clips and see exactly how this panel fits on, exactly how much clearance I got. It's all a little bit of guesswork at the moment. Right, now you've got the parts I need to put the battery carrier in. It's got these shanked bolts and 3/8 washer. Then there's a rubber, these 9/16 washers, another rubber, and then spring washer, which don't want to go on. Let's try this one. Spring washer and a 1/4 inch nut. So that's the basic layout. So I'll start getting these, get this battery carrier on now. That's a little bit tight. Let's try that one. Oh, that side is okay. It needs opening out a little bit. It's got nipped up, I think. Probably too much now. Let's try that other washer in there. Yeah, a little bit tight at the back. Right, so that rubber in there. That should push up like that. Not going to stay there though, looks of it. Rubber on the top, perhaps that'll hold it. Don't show these shank too long. Well, the rubbers are too short. Look like the rubbers are too short to me, because I would have thought that is meant to isolate it. And by the time that goes on, there and there, there's nothing kind of pulling that down. I wonder if that needs another bit of extra. Oh, perhaps that's how it goes, just sits like that. Yeah, perhaps that's it. Right, spring washer. Nut. I think its frame has all got a little bit bent out shape, because that is a bit of a tight fit. That needs pulling over a little bit. Let's tighten these down and see how that is going to sit. If not, I might just put some, I've got some 3/8 hose, which would probably, if I cut some extra long bits, or longer than those rubbers that are in there, because to me that don't seem fair. Oh, I don't know. Actually, yeah, it's more secure than than that looked. So I think they probably need nipping up a bit. Yeah, I would have thought they should be tight on the rubber. Right, so that is basically how that goes. What I want to do, if I can find it, fuse box, is mount that on the top. I've had a look at batteries, and I can find one that will fit, and it should come sort of back there somewhere. So there's a little bit of clearance in the top there. Piece of aluminium plate, if I can cut a strip of that to go across the top, and then mount my fuse box on there. I think that's what I'm going to do. We'll try. Should just come under there, I'm hoping, and that goes on. So we try it. Oh no! So next thing will be to cut a piece of aluminium just to go across there. Fuse box. I've mounted that there. I didn't cut. This is slightly thick, and also it's got that tread pattern on. So I did find a smaller, thinner piece, which probably won't end up staying, but until I can get something either longer or wider, actually, and try and set this back a little bit further, because it is still a little bit close on this corner to the side panel cover. Ideally, probably wants a bit of an angle like that, but I will need a wider piece of this to do that. Yeah, that's going to be roughly there, so at least I can do the wiring now. Like I say, that I think is just going to have to sit in there, cable tied to there maybe. Yeah, so that's going to go there, that's going to go there, that's going to stay there. Yeah, and that it's going to be around this area. If that is too tight with the cover, once that's on there properly, I can just take it off this piece of aluminium. I could even just sort of mount it to the top of the battery with some double-sided tape or something, foam tape or whatever. But it's going to have to go around there, so as long as I leave enough slack to move it around a little bit, I think that'll be fine. So now I have all my components in place, apart from the coils, which I need to get, because I need two 6-volt ones rather than 12-volt that were on here. Although I can still wire it up, because I know roughly the what needs to go there. Yeah, so I can start doing some wiring now, at last. Right, wiring so far. These are basically all for the fuse box. Some are going towards the ignition switch, others, I think one goes towards the back, or two go towards the back. I've got my common grounds here, and positive earth. These are for the brake switch. Here are the rear light wires. This is obviously going to be the main loom coming up here. I've just got them hanging in cable ties temporary, just to run them through, just the easiest way to do it. These wires here will be for the ignition switch. It's got the feed in, this big brown one. Then got ignition and what was the other one? Lights, yeah, for lights. So it's ignition and lights there. Using a full pole switch, ignition switch. Obviously you won't be using the Yorks or anything, I doubt. Right, and these ones are for the horn. That one comes from the fuse board. That one will go away to the horn switch. And then we've got this will be for the lighting switch, this one here. And obviously anything up the front end can't really do just yet, but that should basically be everything heading that way. So I could actually do I'll get a piece of I've got some heat shrink, so I'll put a heat shrink all over that lot and bunch all these together, whichever side they've got to go. Unfortunately I've run out of connectors. So I couldn't actually connect anything up as yet, but I've got to run all the wires through some heat shrink anyway, and obviously a bit of heat shrink around that to the rear. These for the ignition unit, they've got their own kind of looms, so I don't really need to do anything with them just yet. I can do them at a later date, and same with these really. For these they've only got to be connected to the alternator wires here, and these are the battery feed and ground. Yeah, so they can be done at a later time because they only need to be terminated on the battery anyway. So yeah, so basically, I mean, that didn't take probably, what's it now, maybe hour and a bit to do that. Just got to redo a couple of bits on the wiring diagram, change of colour there and there, because I forgot to get some plain blue, but I did have some blue black, so I'll use that instead. What else was it? And red grey there. And what was the other one I changed? Oh yeah, I originally had this come back from the ignition switch, which seemed a little bit pointless. I could just pick it up off the 15 amp main fuse. 5 amp for the horn. I can do all that at the fuse box really. Do a little link cable there. Yeah, so basically that is just about it, apart from putting everything in heat shrink. And obviously terminating. Yeah, so not too bad at all really. Right, so got some heat shrink on there. I've got my ignition switch wires, horn, and these ones that go up to the headlight. That will obviously need a bit of heat shrink on there, but until I get the headlight on, don't really know what sort of length. And oh yeah, this one, the regulator rectifier, I did just separate so we're all in this one sleeve here. I've just separated the alternator ones from the battery ones, so I'll split those. These now come up here just to make that a little bit easier. And so these are all the ones that come in the main loom here, which which all got to go onto the fuse box and battery or ground, and these are the ones which go to the rear, and this is the brake switch wire ready. Yeah, so I've tucked all them under there with some loops built in that mudguard which I've used, and yeah, just got to drill a hole for this to go through once I've decided on what sort of tail light I'm putting on here. So that is pretty much it, apart from the connections on there and battery connections, alternate connections, ignition switch, headlight, just about there. Alright, doing a little bit more prep. Just been putting some heat shrink over these wires. These are the ones that go to the headlight. That's for the horn, and this one tucked around the back here and through there. It's for the ignition switch, which fits in here. And so I can get that in, I've just had to take the damper off, steering damper. Have a look at the switch in a minute. And the other thing is I've fitted these bars on. I don't think these are the correct ones actually. I think they should be a little bit higher, but I've put them on because I need to mount the switch so I can get a rough idea of how long I need to make the wires. Okay, ignition switch. This is actually meant for a later bike, I think 1970 onwards, somewhere around there. I started using these Lucas 35351, which is a 4-pole switch. There is a reason for that, why I'm using this. Not the, what should be on there is a 2-pole, obviously just on off. This has on sorry, it says off, parking, ignition and lights. The reason I'm using this one is so I don't have to have a light switch, an on-off light switch, just a dip switch. Just saves a little bit on the headlight, because the headlight I'm using is not going to be big enough to have a switch on there. So that's why I'm going with this one. As you can see, comes without a barrel lock, which is what this part is. And I think these just basically push in. Comes like that. It's got a little pin on there. I think that's sprung loaded. Yeah, I believe this just pushes in, and that little spring bit hooks in somewhere. I guess that's what that is for. Can't really see down there. I think you have to do it with the key in. Basically, oh, there we are, that's in. Yep. So I'm going to guess that would be parking, that way, parking lights, off, ignition and lights. I'll put it there, yeah. Right, so that is ready to go. Hopefully it will fit. Haven't tried it yet. And then obviously I've got to do my connections. I'll put the terminals on the end of my wires for these. I think that's the main one in. I've got the wiring diagram in front of me, I've got it written all on there. Yeah, I think that's the main one in. I think that's parking, ignition and lights, I think. So I'll get that wired up and fitted. Yeah, should go in there. Don't think that's any much deeper than the other one. The only thing I want to do is try and get some sort of enclosure on the back of here. You know, the other ones you can get a rubber boot for, but I couldn't find anything for this one. So I might have to come up with something, see what I can find anyway. Right, fortunately got the light behind, so it's not very, probably not very clear. Right, so I've just put my terminals on the wires for the ignition switch. So number one is this one at the top, or one of those ones there. That's number one. Actually, I'll put it in the other side, might be better. Put it on that one. So that's number one. Number two, which is that one there, and that needs to be the white wire. On there, and then number three, that bottom one, is the grey red. That's just those three wires on there. Right, so that can now be installed. I couldn't actually find any rubber to go over there. The only thing I had that was close was this, and that was way too big. Well, actually on that way it would have gone, but yeah, that's way too big. So if we come across anything at a later date, I'll just have to change it. Right, so that can now go, hopefully, bend these wires a little bit, can now go in there. There's a little flat on one side, there's it there. There's not a lot of room. Get that in there. There's this little plate at the back, let's bend that back a bit. Oh, there we go. Yeah, quite a tight fit in there. That then goes on the front. There's a locking ring on the rear. So if I do that up as far as that will go, and then tighten up the lock ring, or lock nut behind. I think would be the best way to do that. Let's get a spanner on there. So that is basically it. The ignition switch. Get in here at a funny angle. Not this is very good at close-up stuff, but yeah. You see that only just goes in there. A little bit of a bend on the back of these wires. I think that'll be okay. Alright, let's just do a little bit of a sanity check here. Let's put this round. Difficult, all these wires in the way. Put that round to there. Continuity check. So I've got one lead on the brown going to the switch, and that one's on the white, which is the ignition, and this one is the ignition and lights. So at the moment we shouldn't have anything because it's off. So if I now go to position 1, there we are, we have continuity between those two, and there shouldn't be anything on there. Right, so if I now switch to next position, which would be ignition and lights, so now got continuity to this one, which is for the lights, and I should also have it on this one, which we have. So we know that switch is all good, and the wiring's all coming back here. Started to wire in the fuse box. I've just swung it out a bit so you can get a better look at it. So far, that brown there is the one that goes to the ignition switch. That is to the horn, and there's 3 wires in there. One is, get the wire diagram, so it's brown green to the tail light, white to the stop switch, and the blue black will go up to the switch for the dip and main beam. So there's all 3 in there in that one. So that'll be a 15 amp, 5 amp, 5 amp, 10 amp. And this grey red is from the ignition switch, and the white is from the ignition switch. So the only ones I've got left to do is that one there, which will be to the ignition module. Yeah, to the ignition, like the transistor box. And then there'll be a link cable across there, or link wire, with one going away to the battery negative, and obviously I've got all these from the grounds, the positive ground and battery connections, and that's also got to go to negative battery. Yeah, that one's from the regulator. Yeah, so I think I'm now going to have to make a final decision on where this box is going to go. This transistor box for the old wassail there. So there's all this to go on as yet. And I think that's almost certainly going to have to go here. I can't really see anywhere else. I mean, there is this bracket here. I don't exactly know what that's meant for. Doesn't seem to be doing anything at the minute. So yeah, but I definitely know it's going to go with it, fit there. So, and the wires can easily run away under here. So I think that is going to be where it's going to go. This is my main earthing point. So this thicker one here will go up to the battery, and this thinner one here will just be for the coils, which obviously sit here, which I haven't put in yet. And this is the other lead for the coils, which come from the ignition unit. So I will get those in next, and wire them in. Right, coils fitted, wired in. So this is the red black that comes from the ignition module. So we've got the red one going to the positive side of the first coil, and there's also the red ground which I put in earlier, which goes down here. So it's on this diagram, that red one there, and to ground. Then there is this black lead which goes from this coil, negative side, to this coil, positive side. So that's here, that's that black lead there, and then there's the other black lead which goes back to the ignition unit from the negative of this coil. So these are wired in series. They're two 6-volt coils. This system runs on a wasted spark system, so these actually probably doesn't really matter which way round you put your first wire, as long as you wire them in series. Yeah, so that is that done. Leaflet. There we go. Right. So yeah, that's that on my, probably a bit clearer on my drawing. So that's the little module. Red wire to ground and also to the positive. Black from negative to positive, then the other black wire from the unit to the negative on that one. Yeah, so that is sitting up there, and these are the two little connectors just tucked behind there, and they've also got the, to bring you down a little bit for, maybe it's easier off the tripod. Yeah, so that's the other connection for the pickup unit. So that is all wired in now. I've got the handlebar switch to rewire because I want to change the colours on that, if I can find it. I think I might have left it indoors actually. Yeah, I just want to change the colours so they match my diagram. So I'll rewire that and get that on the bars. Right, found my switch. That was right in front of me. Couldn't see it for looking. Yeah, what I've done, I've actually just extended the appropriate wire to the colours that I'm using, because this was going to be too short anyway. I would have wired it right back, except I was a bit short on the which one was it? That one, I think. The black, yeah, the blue black. I only had a short piece of that left, so yeah, that's just as well to extend it. So I just need to get some heat shrink on these joints and extend that heat shrink, or I could even put a complete new piece right over the whole length. Might actually look better. Although this is flexible stuff, so I'll see where this joint ends up on the, when I put it on the handlebars. See whether I'm going to actually extend this or just put a new piece. I think it'd be the best thing to do. Yeah, so that'd be my switch. So that would be my low or dip and high beam, and that'll be the horn, and that one is meant for a kill switch, but I won't be using that. I don't need that. It's not actually wired in the back. That's what that's actually meant for. Yeah, so I'll get this sorted up and have a little test fit on the handlebars. Right, switch is mounted up there, and cable running down there. I'll come through here, and when I eventually get the headlight, these can all be connected up inside the headlight. So that is about it for now. So just need to, I've got a headlight coming. Just need to order a tail light, but there's no real rush for that. That can be right last minute. Battery, that can be last minute. And yeah, just got to finish off the wiring on here, which could just wait until I get the battery really. So everything is pretty much electrics done. Oh, horn, I've got a horn coming as well. It's got to be fitted. Yeah, and I've also got another piece of plate here which I may or may not use. It's a bit longer, would go right the way across, but yeah, we'll see with that. Yeah, so pretty much done with the electrics.